Thank you so much for having me. It's a really cool thing to do. And I mean, I don't know if you guys know whereabouts I live, but I live out in the countryside in France, and I don't get the opportunity to really talk to anyone other than my wife. So it's really cool to meet you guys and to do this.
Well, we're honored in that aspect.
Yeah. Thanks for giving me some social interaction so far this summer. I appreciate it.
I say let's dive into things. So today, we're talking Midgar, which is your solo project, and Unity is coming out soon, very soon, at the end of the month. Talk to us about this is a long time coming for you in a way. It's been a bit of a hiatus, if you will. Talk to us what was going on between your last album and this one coming out.
And I mean, it has been a really long time, exactly like you say. I mean, the last Midgar album was released, it came out digitally in 2013, but it was released, we did it via Pledge Music. Do you guys remember Pledge Music? It was like the original crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Anyway, that platform didn't end well, I heard. They ran off with a bunch of money or something. Anyway, we did a Pledge Music album release in 2012. So it was 9 years ago that album came out. And I mean, what a different world we all lived in back then, right? I mean, it's just the last 18 months seems like a decade. I mean, looking back to 2012 is just crazy. So yeah, I mean, back then we were still kind of touring and we were doing that sleeping on a van floor thing all seasons and just, slumming it, playing these toilet venues all over the country and just, thinking we were rock stars, but actually just being really broke and miserable and gross and tired. And
the luxurious life.
Yeah. I mean, no one ever tells you that when you start a band and you have these designs of being successful, and then they go, "Oh, you have to do this, right?" and then you do it, and it sucks, and you end up all depressed and miserable, which is exactly what happened. So, the touring bubble kind of burst. I ended up with just no money at all, and being an independent band, we were just supporting ourselves through that whole process, and it just became unsustainable. And it pretty much killed the relationship I was in. At which point I then kind of found myself without anywhere to live. And I had like a couple of weeks to get all my stuff together and just find myself just a new path in this new city that I'd not been living in for very long at all. And it didn't go well. I was a bit of a mess from the breakup. It was the most serious long-term relationship I'd ever been in. I thought we were going to get married and have kids. And then just like that, it was over. And I was just a tornado for the next kind of 2 years at least, and just fell completely off the wagon, like just drinking all the time and just making a nuisance of myself. But the biggest issue that I had my voice more than anything, I couldn't sing, I couldn't write music. It was just like the spark had gone. So eventually, I met a girl that was going to become my wife. And she, helped me turn my life around and was just like, "Hey, look, if we're going to be together, then you need to sort some of this stuff out that you got going on in your life because, I love you, but this sucks." So we decided a complete reboot of our lives was necessary to kind of get us into a more positive place. And we ended up moving to France and renovating an old farmhouse and, turning it from a pile of rubble into somewhere that we can actually live, somewhere I have a recording studio, which I built. And I made a promise to myself that once I got my life together and I had somewhere to do it, the first thing I would do was make a Midgar record. So I started doing that January 2020. It just so happens that I ended up with a lot of time on my hands for the rest of that year, where I was able to get really, really stuck into that. And then the album was finished properly, like mixed, mastered, with a big seal of approval on it, ready to go in September of last year. And then it's been a process since then of kind of creating music videos and working with the label Year of the Rat Records to get this thing out there. And now finally it comes out in like 2.5 weeks. That's the short version.
So where's your headspace right now with this now weeks away from release? Like, are you nervous, excited? a whole hurricane of emotions. What's going on?
Yeah, hurricane is right. Yeah, I mean, it's all happening all at once. And I think one thing that I'm finding, I suppose, more difficult doing this on my own this time, is that there's no one to share the work with. And there's a lot of stuff to do, to get an album out there. I feel like such a dinosaur when it comes to the social media stuff and the Spotify playlisting and all those things. But there's just a lot of stuff to do on the computer to make all of those cogs turn and things happen. So there's all of that, and I guess on some level that is distracting me from the just sheer existential dread and terror of the world finally hearing this thing that I've been working on all on my own. And it's going to be out there and people are going to listen to it and it's not mine anymore. And that's always a frightening thing to do. But I think because of the process this album's been through, it's just more terrifying for me, because this is it's like me opening up my diary of the last 7 or 8 years of my life and going, hey, everyone, just look at that, And I guess it could be a very undignified process depending on how you interpret what you're reading or what you're listening to. So yeah, I'm frightened and excited and relieved all at the same time.
For the album title, it's called Unity. I was sort of, reading into the notes you sent, watching the music videos, all that. Are we talking about unity of the self? It seems like it was sort of a transformation period for you, what you were going through for the last decade. But especially, I think Paradise. Not to give the twist of the music video away to anyone who hasn't watched it, but you're sort of faced with yourself. But what? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, unity is. I mean, you've nailed it. I guess it is oneness. It is unity of self. It is discovering who you really are, and I guess sort of feeling centered by that. And maybe you might be able to hear a cat meowing. I'm really sorry. We've got this cat that lives outside the studio.
Yeah, you're all good. I got a dog over here too.
I think when you confront the demons that I guess you didn't even know you really had, right? Like you sort of grow up and you get to a point in your life and you're like, oh, I'm not really happy with this part of myself, or maybe I should work on that. Once you confront all of those kind of facets of yourself, I think the end result is, if you do it right, is that you end up with one self. And that is the you that you feel inside. And it's the same as the you that you send out to the world as well. And the process of getting there was, I guess, kind of rough. And the album documents the process of maybe trying to get there. I think it's also, I guess, a little bit of a play on the fact that this has been a solo effort this time round. So yeah, Unity just felt right. It just felt like it was kind of Midgar coming home and Midgar finally being what it was always destined to be. And it feels strong to me as an album title. Yeah.
Talking about the singles a little bit, with Paradise, Arie actually pointed this out. I was like, is he doing yoga in a field, or what is he doing in the music video? But he actually had mentioned, you said those are Tai Chi moves, possibly? Arie?
That's what they looked like to me. I don't know if I was just far reaching there or not.
I'm going to admit something to you, and that is that they are nothing. the video was filmed during a lockdown where we could only go 10 kilometers away from home. So, we had a curfew in place. You could leave the house at a certain time. You had to be home by a certain time. You could only go a certain distance from your house. And this just presented loads and loads of problems when it came to me designing a music video that actually had a story involved. I had to come up with something that I could do within that radius. And, we're surrounded by woods and trees and stuff. And I knew I wanted to have this journey with, the lead character confronting themselves. You guys Star Wars fans?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So I think it's Return of the Jedi, where Luke confronts this kind of image of Darth Vader in like a dream, and he's like walking through those caves and stuff, and then Vader comes out and he defeats him, and then he takes off the mask and it's him, and you're like, whoa! I knew I wanted to have that kind of moment in the video, but I didn't know how I was going to execute it with just it's just me in a field with a camera what the hell am I going to do? So to come back to the movements in the video, I wanted to come up with some kind of ritual that I could use to tell the story that I was kind of summoning myself from the woods. Like it's like
interesting. Yeah.
It's like I'm calling myself out, like maybe a physical seance to kind of call this spirit out of the woods. But the movements themselves, I mean, I guess they may be inspired probably quite a lot by the OA, which I love. It's like one of my favorite TV series that I watched a couple of years ago. But I wanted them to be kind of just physical movements that I guess did something, but I don't have
sort
any
of
training or there's nothing to them other than that.
I actually really love that, because sometimes, like you had mentioned, you have put so much hard work into not only this Midgar album, but the music videos that behind it, and a ton of soul searching. And at that point, is it yours? Like, it's projected to the world. So like Todd thinks that it's yoga moves, I think it's Tai Chi, and really they're nothing. So it's just like classic interpretation of something that everyone can consume, but I'm going to find something different as to Todd's going to find something different. And obviously this is your thing. So you're the one that's saying, like, hey, this is what it actually is, but that's really cool that you can take away something else from it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that is the scariest part of releasing anything. I think any art or any kind of creativity is your message going to come over, or what's the interpretation of it going to be in the other end, and being open to those other interpretations. As is probably demonstrated by the fact I've done all of this on my own. Like I'm a bit of a control freak, right? So I'm like, I want things to be done this way. So in a lot of ways, it's cathartic for me and kind of therapeutic for me to allow the process to be interpreted by someone on the other side. I think it's good for me. It calms my control freak side in a way.
I am exactly the same way. Like, even when Todd and I are podcasting, I'm just like, dude, you got to tell me if I'm just taking too much, because I am so used to doing everything myself. And it's very hard. And that itself, to release any art, takes courage, and especially something that is so deep rooted in your own psyching. And kind of circling back to Unity, I think that this is not only the perfect album title for yourself, but just for the state of the world that we've been in this last year or so. Because even the Nemesis video had a lot of like social justice and a lot of like really just themes that have been so heavy these last couple months and years. So unity is what everyone needs: unity of self, unity of the community. That rhymes,
Nice.
But it's really cool that, something, again, that's so personal that can just be really applied to an overarching sense of how the state of humanity is today.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that you picked up on that. Yeah, for sure. And I think the two, while they're different kinds of unity, right? Unity between people, unity within yourself. I genuinely feel as though to achieve unity amongst people, the best way to do that is to look inwards and look at yourself and go, okay, like, am I happy with who I am? Maybe not. Let me figure that out. And then once I've done that, I can engage with people in a much more positive way.
I like that, because I mean, what a world in a pandemic, what do people have on their hands is time to look at yourself more than other people. I want to talk a little bit about some of the other singles too, because the variety of the music in each, it was that very much on purpose to make this sort of a mixed bag of a record of different layers of different sounds that you wanted to push out.
So I work as a composer for TV and film. That's my day job. I'm lucky enough to have music involved in all parts of my life these days. It wasn't always like that, but the last few years it's been my bread and butter. But what I do for that work is very prescriptive. So I'll receive briefs and I'll have to work to a certain sound that people are wanting me to do for them. And that could be anything. It could be classical, could be kind of contemporary rock or electronica, or like literally anything they want. But what that means for Midgar is that Midgar is where I come to kind of blow off steam. It's where I come to do all the things that, like, I'd never receive a brief ever from a client that would say, I want you to write a song that sounds like Midgar, please, because they just wouldn't do it. It's just too weird or loud or out there and indulgent, you know. So it's like my playground. So I guess I bring stuff to Midgar that maybe I wouldn't be brave enough to do elsewhere. And the result is that it's very varied. I think there are common threads that run through the whole thing though. And I guess maybe that's just as a result of doing it on my own. So, you know, writing everything and producing it, I think is the thing that kind of is the glue that brings all of these other elements that wouldn't necessarily work together all into one space and kind of make it sound cohesive. And I've always intended for Midgar to be defined by the contrast in the songs, right? That light versus shade, you know, the classical piano and strings versus just really in your face, loud rock music and everything in between. And that's what makes music fun for me to make and to listen to, is that it's like transportive and takes you places and makes you go, wow, I don't think I've heard anything like that before. And that's what Midgar is all about for me, is those crazy elements all in one place.
Well, what I like personally about each of the singles I have heard is just, you know, you can't pigeonhole your music, because I love that, you know, from the lighter side of what Sunburn is to Nemesis and Paradise, just with that huge guitar riff, just, I don't know what point I'm trying to make, but I love the layers that I'm hearing just in it. And some of those time signatures, I love how I can hear every instrument in it. Like that to me really, really stands out.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear. You know, especially seeing as this is the first time I've ever like fully self-produced a record like this that sounds, there's so many elements in it. So I'm glad you can hear them all. That's like, that means I did my job. It's funny you mentioned time signatures, because I actually had God, it sounds so lame. Not a spreadsheet, but like a piece of paper where I wrote down. I was like trying to put the album together, and I would group things by like, okay, like loud, angry, and then like happy, dreamy, and then like beautiful, lush. And I'd write all these kind of keywords for songs and the kind of the order I want them to appear in, so that I could kind of put the album order together properly. And then I'd also add more information, like this song's in 4/4, this song's in 3/4, this song's going to be in 5/4. This song's going to be in 11/8. And like, I kind of made a conscious effort that I didn't want too many things to be similar. So I kind of wanted to hit as many bases as I could in a way. So yeah, I literally had this piece of paper where it would go 11, 7, 6, 5, 4. And like, I had it all laid out like that. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to create variety and to try and do things that I wouldn't normally do. There's a song on the album, it's called Erebus, which comes directly after Nemesis. And that is the example that was me just probably like mid-lockdown, losing my mind, being as weird as I possibly could. It's a song in 11/8, but with like a 4/4 kick drum pattern and a 2/4 piano part, so that alternates over the bar lines, and it just gets really crazy. And the chorus is in Latin. So it's just like, I said it was indulgent. That's what I was talking about.
That's interesting to hear. I love that you're experimenting with all these different sounds. I mean, does that pair at all with like the roller coaster of the last 10 years? Was that just something that you just wanted to include? Was like kind of peaks and valleys to this thing, or
maybe on a subconscious level? Yeah, I mean, I did that mostly just because I like music to be, I guess, I don't like music to just be challenging for the sake of it. Like, I don't want to make something that sounds horrible to people and, you know, they have to explain it to their friends like, you don't get it, man. It's just, it's challenging music. That's why it sounds so strange. But I wanted there to be something in there for listeners to really get their teeth into and have to deconstruct a little bit. And there are, you know, maybe a few like Easter eggs in there, or, you know, maybe not necessarily in jokes, but like there's a band that I really love. They're not together anymore, as is often the case with the bands I love. The band called Ocean Size. And they're like ultra progressive rock. I mean, like, you know, I described Midgar as indulgent. Ocean Size is just next level. And there's a lot of like progressive, like math jazz stuff going on in there. But I would always listen to that and then try and, figure out where the time signatures were taking me and how they were layering over one another and what were they trying to tell me with those time signatures. And, they made a song where they censored out the numbers in the song title, but the numbers were the numbers of the time signature that you were listening to. And the reason they did that is because it was a song written about 9/11 and they didn't want to have it like banned or create too much controversy. But the time signatures were switching constantly between the two. It was a bar of 9 and a bar of 11, a bar of 9, a bar of 11. And like, if you're a listener that bothers to listen that intently to the music, you get the full message. And I think I would never be able to do anything quite like that. Like, that's just next level for me. But
yeah, it sounds
I love
like
the
Tool
idea
on our end. Tool goes crazy deep into how they produce a song and down to the T and the I's. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's a similar thing. And, I just like injecting those extra layers of information into the music where I can, because it's fun for me. And if no one ever gets it, well, that's fine. But like, I had fun making it.
One of you talk about Midgar being indulgent, but also another description of the band is cinematic. So would you kind of tie in, like, even without your day job in the film and television industry? Because I know, like, for myself, I also work in film, and like a lot of the stuff I'll do with Brewtal, with Todd and I, like, comes from film. And then when I do film, it's influenced through music. So like injecting all these crazy things into your music, is that just like how you would describe it as cinematic then, just because there's so many layers? Or is it like the orchestral parts that really make it cinematic for you? Because we talk about journeys through music all the time. Personally, one of my favorite things, like when I can listen to something and like I can listen to it intently, and then I can listen to it in the background, and I get two totally different experiences, but it's just a journey. So just kind of curious if you could elaborate, like, what does a cinematic rock band mean to you? Obviously Midgar, but
yeah, it's such a good question. And for me, just the sound of the band conjures up like a widescreen image for me. I kind of like to describe it as widescreen music. It's broad, it's I guess it's big sounding, and in that respect it's cinematic. I think you're right, the orchestral element for sure. Like, I love arranging for orchestra and writing orchestral music, and I think that is one of the main things that makes it cinematic. And I think it is that it conjures up a visual to some degree, and it's like I mentioned earlier on, the music being transportive and taking you somewhere else and doing exactly what you just described, which is kind of listening actively, or maybe lying down, but like actively using your ears and listening to the music and letting it just completely take over you. That can very well be a visual experience as well as an auditory one. And I like to think that Midgard does that. It's like maybe the audio equivalent of like watching a big epic, Christopher Nolan movie or something. That would be the dream for me to kind of feel like that. So I think also it's difficult because it does also mean that Midgar doesn't really belong anywhere. It can be really hard to find a space to exist in. Like, so many bands have a scene that they're a part of, and we really struggled with this when we were playing live all the time. Like, we put on these 5-band bills with like 4 hardcore bands, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I would love that kind of scene. That's what I grew up being a part of. But then we'd play and everyone would be like, what? Like, what is this?
Playing
like
piano right now?
Yeah. It just did not make any sense. And I guess maybe to touch back on what we had talked about earlier on, and maybe that's why the live thing was just so depressing for us, because we were playing this music that was, I feel, maybe just bigger than the space that we were playing it in. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like playing songs like off this record, it would just look really weird if we were playing it to a room with 10 people in it. It's kind of all or nothing, and I think that can make it difficult for Midgar to find a home.
Talk to us a little bit about the writing process. Was it in this new studio that you built? And talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I wrote it all here. I mean, I obviously, because it's been such a long time since Midgar released an album, there's certain bits, like offcuts, maybe the odd voice memo here and there, or something that I've just written down. I've been like, wow, that'd make a really, really good track. Since the last one, and I explored some of those ideas first, you know, songs that I never got the chance to finish over the years while I was just busy being a loser. And then We Don't Make the Rules was one of those. I wrote that piano part in the loft of the house that I ended up not living in anymore when my girlfriend and I broke up back in 2013. But it was really only that and a little bit of Sunburn. Actually, Sunburn was another offcut from a songwriting session over a decade ago. The rest of it was all written like beginning of January to mid-February. It was like a 6-week period where I was unbearable. I didn't do anything other than write. My wife was like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I'm in the zone. Like I can't come out of this zone. I'm just writing." I was getting like 9 years worth of writing constipation out of me all in one go. And yeah, so the process kind of is I'll either sit down at the piano or with my guitar, and I guess it's just kind of free writing at that moment. I'll play whatever comes to mind. I'll kind of hum melodies. I generally start on the piano because I think it just kind of gives me a bit more control of the arrangement than a guitar would. I mean, Paradise was written on the guitar, absolutely, because it's just like a guitar riff track.
I was going to say that opening riff is like, that hits you
good.
like a sledgehammer for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's all guitar. You can't write that on the piano. It just wouldn't make any sense. But
I'd love to see that process.
Yeah. So I'll do that, and I will just hit record and just maybe put together a rough structure, and then it stays in the super rough mode for ages and ages and ages. I mean, if the world would hear these rough versions of the songs, they'd be like, "Wow, he's terrible. What a terrible musician he is," because it's just like sloppy, just the guitar's out of tune, like everything's just horrible. But then I will listen to that over and over and over and over and over again until eventually an arrangement that I want it to sound like actually appears in my head, and I'm like, okay, I need to get this out of my head and then record it properly. And then it's a process of doing it from the ground up. So, drums, guitars, they'll bring the orchestra in afterwards. Vocals generally, bass was last. That was because the bass was actually played by a hero of mine, this guy, Greg McPherson, who's part of a band that I grew up watching. One of my favorite bands ever, a band called In Me. They were just a huge influence on me growing up, and we ended up touring with them and becoming friends with them. And then, Greg was like, "I want to play bass on your next Midgar album when you finally do it." I'm like, "Okay, cool."
You're like, yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, I was like, let me think about that for a second. Yes, absolutely. Then the bass was pretty much the very last element of the record. And then I'd take it to mix, and that's another process. It's interesting because doing all of these bits, I had to distance myself from it to kind of bookend each of these portions of the process. So like I'll do the writing, and then I'll go like, right, done that. I'm now just not going to listen to it or think about it for 2 weeks because I'm going crazy. And then I'll come back and do the production, and that just took forever. And then I can't do the mix until I've forgotten what it sounds like, because you get demo love, right? Your ears are just drawn to what it already sounds like. So I go away and I'll pull everything out of the sessions and I'll mix it. And then once I've done that, I'm like, right, I can't master it now because I'm so used to the mix, and I'll just come back a couple of weeks later. So yeah, you're putting all these different hats on, and you have to just take a little reprieve between each of them. Otherwise you just go completely crazy.
And talk a little bit about the fact that you built your own studio. I think that's really cool, but was there any challenges to that going into it?
The previous owner of this property was like an amateur mechanic, I guess. And this was kind of, you can probably see, well, maybe you can't, just behind there, it extends out into this big metal hangar. And our house is like 100 meters that way. And this is in the garden. So it's a huge building, this. And just at the back of it, there was a section, like maybe double garage size, that I was able to insulate properly and build. I mean, it was just empty. It was just a concrete floor and just some holes to the sky. There was no electricity or anything in here. So, but I was like, this is perfect. I love it. Yeah. I mean, I renovated the house over the last couple of years, and that's been a different process, another learning opportunity and another way, I guess, of expressing yourself. And there's something really nice and comforting about doing manual labor. This is not too, exhausting, I guess, which it can be, but like seeing a thing that you've made is like another experience for me. sorry, I'm going to go on a tangent here for a second, just because everything I do normally, it's not tangible, right? Like I make music and you can hear it, but like you can't get your hands on it. So renovating a house was an amazing experience for me because I'm like, I can use this staircase that I've built. Like it physically takes me somewhere. That's really, really cool. You know, I had to put those skills that I'd learned into building a studio because that's been my life's dream, to have a space that I can call home for my music and I can work in. I'm used to working in box bedrooms, in rented apartments, in city centers that like, you know, cost £1,500 a month and I can fit this desk in it. You know, I delivered all my TV and advertising stuff from rooms like that over the years. So having a studio like this is it's a dream come true. And I mean, I could not wait to build it. My wife was like, you can't build it until you finish the house. You gotta finish the house first, and then you can build the studio. I'm like, let me at the studio. She knew it was coming. She knew she was going to see me for like a year after that.
I've got all this in my head. It needs to get out.
Yeah.
You just need to build a tunnel now to connect the two.
Don't give her ideas.
I mean, that's really cool though, because like you said, all these, it sounds like are like labors of love, and you have all this, because people, myself included, I know Todd and I talk about this all the time, like time is just, especially this past year with the pandemic, like time is such a weird like concept, because you've had all this time in between the last Midgar album, but like, look at what you've learned. Like you've learned about yourself. You've learned about like how to be a handyman. You've learned how to have a recording studio for yourself and like do everything yourself. So like, in a way, like those dark times sound, I mean, I think we've all been there in one way, shape or form, but like you learn so much and you learn what you want, and you need that time. Like I hate to even say, like, I hope that people experience something like so devastating, but like it really does help to learn through the pain, and it sucks so bad. But then you get something like the new Midgar album. I mean, we haven't heard the whole thing, very excited for it, but the singles are just phenomenal. And we honestly didn't know like what to expect from Midgar itself, because the first song we both heard was Sunburn, be like, this is cool, but you know, not really what we generally listen to and generally would talk about on the show. But then you have something like Nemesis or Paradise that is like so hard hitting. We were texting back and forth, be like, dude, this is like, Midgar is getting progressively like better and better. Like this is so exciting. And again, just tangent aside, like it's just really cool. And you should be very proud of everything that you've accomplished with yourself, with the studio. And I'm going to end the tangent because I just really need to know, do you love Final Fantasy VII? Yes or no?
What do you think?
I of course want to say yes, but
I'm
like
an outlier and say no. He has no idea what the reference is.
So yeah, I mean, yes, of course I do. In fact, I'm gonna be that guy that gets my tattoo out now. This is a Sephiroth tattoo. Oh, you probably can't even quite see it on the.
I
can make it out now. Yeah.
Sick,
yeah.
dude.
So I played the original. Well, obviously, I started in '97 when it came out, and it sounds really dark. It's not meant to be this dark, I promise. When I was that age, I used to spend a lot of time on my own. Like, this sounds like I had the worst childhood ever. I didn't. It was great. But I would spend a lot of time by myself playing Final Fantasy VII. And the music of that game is so rich and interesting and just wonderful. It's like the best music ever, but it also just goes round and round and round and round, right? It's designed to be on these long continuous loops of music, and it just drills itself into your brain. I mean, deep into your brain.
I was gonna say, I can hear the load screen right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like you can pick those melodies out, and that was my musical upbringing, you know, as well as the bands that I was brought up on by my parents and stuff. I mean, I was at what is now Download Festival. I was there in 1994, aged like 6, holding a Power Ranger in my hand, watching Pantera and Sepultura.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Watching watching the toilet paper fly and stuff. But I was like, my parents were pretty cool back then, and like that, as well as Final Fantasy, was my musical heritage for sure. So it's been a big influence on me, definitely. And I think that's the reason why I went down the film and TV composition route. Probably is just because of the way that game music made me feel about music. And obviously, I was completely over the moon when the remake landed last year, and it's a miracle I got the album done, because remake landed in April last year, and I did nothing but play that for a month straight. So yeah, I thank God for lockdown, seriously.
What you described, like Midgar, is Final Fantasy. Like, you have the Pantera Sepultura side that you grew up with, and then you've got the very cinematic, dreamy, just it gets stuck in your head aspect to it as well, and they marry quite well together. So kudos, sir.
Thank you so much. That's really, really kind of you. And like I said, it's a labor of love, and I would be making this music if nobody heard it anyway. So it's really, really cool that there's other people out there who are like, yeah, that's pretty cool, and I get the references and all that stuff. So yeah, thanks, I appreciate that.
Sure. That's pretty much it from us. Is there anything else you want to talk about the album? I know there's a form of the album that features an extra track, which is the tapes. Talk a little bit about that, just and push out what's happening on the Midgar.
So yeah, alongside the digital release, it's been really hard to find a way of doing a physical release for this album because of all the events that this last year and a half has thrown at the world. I wanted to do a vinyl release, but like lead times for vinyl production here in Europe, at least, are like 18 months. So if I'd like pressed go when I was writing that first song back in January 2020, I still wouldn't have the vinyl in my hands. So that just is not an option for getting an album out for like a guy like me and an indie label like Year of the Rat Records. It's just not going to happen. And then there's budget, right? It's just crazy prohibitively expensive. And then, I don't want to go into detail on this one, but like there's been this thing you might have heard of where the UK left the European Union, which
you're aware.
which has made selling to people who want to buy stuff from me super difficult, like ridiculously difficult. It's like sending something to the moon. Right, it's just so unnecessary.
And then having to come back down to Earth. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't send vinyls to customers in the UK. It just would never work. So tapes became a perfect solution because they're small and you can send them to people for next to nothing. But also the tape was part of the production process for the album itself. I have tape machines here in the studio that I send the audio to and from to get the kind of sound I want. And it felt like the format that did justice to the album. It felt appropriate for the album. So it was kind of a problem-solving exercise, but also something that was true to the sound of the record as well. And the bonus track on you guys want to know a secret about the bonus track? I've been dying to tell someone about this.
Yeah.
And it feels like I can trust you guys not to tell anyone the secret.
That's a mistake.
The bonus track is called Warrens. So I have made references to like Final Fantasy VII for years and years and years. So all the things I do, right? My studio is called Sector 7 Studios. The band is called Midgar. Like everything's got these little nods to Final Fantasy VII. Warrens is different. Warrens is a song that has a reference to Doom in it rather than Final Fantasy VII, because I'm a big Doom guy as well. I don't know how into the original Doom you guys are, but I played it a lot as a kid. The third episode of the original Doom, right, starts with this level Inferno, and it's got a bonus level, like a secret level in that episode of Doom, which you access through the level Mount Erebus as well. So we've got that track called Erebus on the record as well. The secret level is called Warrens in that episode of Doom. And the idea behind that secret level is that it's like a reboot of the first level, Inferno, right? But something's different, and it doesn't look the way it looked before. You're like, what's happened? It's like, is the game broken? Like, what's the deal? Am I playing the first level again? Did I lose my progress? Like, what the hell's happening? And then you get to the end, you get to the exit of the level, and you step onto the teleporter, and then like the walls come down, and then you're confronted by like hell. You're like, oh no, I've had this awful trick played on me, and now I'm going to die. So the song Warrens, it was written about that Doom level.
That's actually awesome.
Yeah.
I'm currently playing Doom Eternal, so
yeah, good luck.
I'm not doing
it's
well.
harder than the last one.
Yeah,
I'm doing an ultra violence run that I gave up on, and I don't know how do people do an ultra nightmare? I have no clue. I mean, these people are just incredible. Are you playing on console or PC?
PS4. Yeah, I've actually taken a little bit of a breakaway from that to play Biomutant right now to give myself a little bit more of a peaceful time.
Yeah, I hear it's easier on PC because you can like fast swap weapons and stuff.
Interesting.
On PS4, like you only get the weapon wheel, and it's pretty much you come up against too many things at one go and you're in trouble. So yeah, I've had to step away from it for a bit. I was close to controller smashing on my ultra violence run. So yeah, good luck to you.
It's gonna be tough. Is there anything else you want to put out to the world about the album? It's coming out June 25th for listeners who will listen and hear and see this as well. But anything else? Anything upcoming as far as maybe tours on the horizon? Who knows?
Oh man, that is wishful thinking. Tour is tough because there's the issue of travel and restrictions and venues. I mean, just all of those things. Plus the fact that I am now in a different country to the guys that would be joining me on stage, which makes it more complicated.
Right.
I don't want to say never, but it's a wait and see kind of thing at the moment. I don't know if I can properly say what's coming after the album, but there is going to be another release of some description after the album with things that aren't on the album but are related to the album.
Okay.
Soon afterwards, maybe with another music video, maybe possibly, and then it's writing the next one, because I don't want to keep people waiting almost 10 years for the next one again.
Then you would be like Tool.
Yeah, it would be like Tool. Yeah, I don't plan on having like another life crisis between now and the next one. Like I think I've got my life together now. I've learned all I needed to learn.
Yeah,
I'm in a good place right now. Let's keep it at this. Well, cool. Yeah. I mean, seriously, thank you for your time. I can't think of anything else. Arie, I think we have all of our questions released out to you. Yeah, thank you. Seriously. And this is so awesome to us because it's across the pond, and we were so worried about the timing of everything, and we're just like, I think we have the right times.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't worry. I've only got building work to do. That's it, and I'm trying to avoid it. So I would sit here all day if I had to.
Go back to Doom Eternal then.
Yeah, yeah. Those are my choices: a demon horde, or building a bathroom, or sitting here, which I'm going to do. I'm going to sit here instead.
Yes.
Well, cool.
Yeah.
Again, seriously, thank you. We appreciate your time so much. And for us being some of the first people that you've talked to in a while, we're honored.
It's an honor.
With that aspect.
Does it show I've not spoken to anyone in a while other than this cat and my wife?
I don't think so. No.
Not at all.
I don't know whether or not this is what we do now or afterwards, but I prepared a drink. Well, okay, let me talk you through this. So it's funny. I looked at the name of your show and I was like, Brewtal, that's cool. I'm like the least brutal guy. And my drink reflects that massively. Not only is it not beer, it's gin and tonic, but it's non-alcoholic gin. So, I'm like the least rock and roll guy on the planet these days, but I'm going to talk you through it anyway. This is a non-alcoholic gin called Pentire, which is named after a place that my family's been going on holiday for like 80 years through the generations. I went there for the first 30 years of my life until I moved to France. It's the place that's like most special to my heart. It's this headland in Cornwall that looks out over the Atlantic, and it's one of those places where there's something in the rock, man. Like you can feel it. You know what I mean? Like you get there, you're like, holy crap! Like I'm alive. So this gin is made with botanicals native to that area, and I'm having it with a slice of orange and rosemary from our garden, and a bit of tonic. So I'm very partial to a gin and tonic. Now it's just a non-alcoholic version because I spoiled it by drinking too much of the alcoholic version.
Your story is much cooler than mine. I just have a bottle of water, non-alcoholic. So
you can't live without it.
Yeah, true. Gotta hydrate.
I've got a cup of coffee. It's key lime pie flavored from Bones Brewery, or not brewery. Wow, I got beer on the mind. Like Bones Coffee. I'm not sure where they're based out of here in the States, but last year, so my fiance, we have a pit bull together, and she like gave me like, we call it Potter's Day. So like being a dog father, she got me these Bones coffees last year around this time. And we've been getting them ever since. They've got like really cool nods to horror movies and stuff, which all for. So like one of the other ones that we just recently got is called Army of Dark Chocolate, which is a nod to Army of Darkness. And the
I like that.
The label art looks the same. It just like they do it in their own style. But we also had one called From Dusk Till Donuts, which was a nod to From Dusk Till Dawn. So yeah, if you're a coffee drinker, Andy, and you can get Bones over there, I would definitely pick some up. And same, Todd, they're super. Yeah, they've got a bunch of cool flavors.
I'm going to look into that because coffee is a passion of mine, especially first thing in the morning, but also punny titles for food and drink items is also a side passion of mine. So like, I'm here for it, man. That sounds great.
Hell yeah. Well, what we like to do on the show is we'll say Brewtal and we'll just kind of like cheers each other and we'll take a drink there. So Brewtal, thanks for coming on there, Andy. Love your story, man.
Brewtal. Thank you so much for having me.
Salute.
Cheers.